Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Had your lunch, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Recursion is a function calling itself, and there is a procedure for writing recursive codes. We need to make it a point that recursion ends at some point, and that is what is called as the base case or the anchor case or the stopping condition. Okay, so the purpose is to actually stop recursion at some point. And it can be based on your application, it can be any of the point. Your logic is your logic, but you should make sure that the recursion will end at a point, because recursion is a kind of looping, wherein you will be calling the function again and again. So the function that you call in recursion is the same function. Okay, so here the calling function and the called function are the same ones. The point is that you're calling the function on a different arguments. That is a point with recursion. And then your logic, you will be putting your logic in the recursive calls. So I was discussing the example of factorial in yesterday's class, wherein I wanted to calculate the factorial of a number. So I can also do it in an iterative fashion. So just take a look at this particular code. This is the entire code for performing the factorial of a number. So this is my function definition. The name of the function is factorial and n is passed into this particular function. So I said inside this function, I'm saying if n is equal to 1, I said return 1. So this is my base case. Okay, so this is my base case. When n becomes 1, I am stopping the recursion. So this is my base case. And inside the else part, I have given my general case. The general case is the logic of the program. And this logic, I have put n into all this is the logic. Okay, so I'm applying the logic. And this is the recursive call. So wherein I said factorial n minus 1. So as you can see that the name of the function is factorial. And inside this function, I'm writing factorial, meaning that here the calling function and the called function are same. When the calling function and the called function are same, then you call that as recursion. But here you're calling on n, but inside you're making a call on n minus 1. So you're calling the function on a different parameter. It can be reducing or it can be increasing. That entirely depends on how you are building your logic. So generally what should happen is, even if the arguments are increasing or decreasing or whatever you're writing the logic, always your recursive calls should push you towards the base case, so that there should be a solution. So you have to give a solution faster to the major problem. So let me show you what happens over here. So initially I have given n to be 5. So here n is nothing but 5. So I entered, checked for the condition. So this condition is false over here. So what happens now, we are making a recursive call for 4. Okay, so now what happened? Now n became 4. Okay, so here it will be 5 into this one. Now 4, and then the condition failed, meaning that 4 is equal to 1. So it's false. So now I'm calling recursion on a different number, which is 3. So now n became 3. So the condition failed. So we are going for a recursive call wherein I'm calling recursion on 2. So now it is 2. So 2 is equal to 1 is false. So what happened? So then I'm calling it on 1. Now n is equal to 1. Okay, so you can also take 1 and make a recursive call to 0. Because for factorial, 0 factorial is 1. So you can also say that n is equal to 0, then you can say return 1 also you can write. Or else you can also write your base case can be if n is equal to 1 or n is equal to 0. But here the point is we are reducing the number of executions by stopping it at 1, because factorial of 1 or factorial of 0 is equal to 1. So why you need to make another recursive call and waste the space on the stack? So that's why we are saying if n is equal to 1, we are returning 1. So now we are not making further recursive calls, so we stopped. So it will do it in this manner. Like 1 into 2 is 2, 2 into 3 is 6, 6 into 4 is 24, and then 120. So this is how we got, and finally this function will return 122 as on the as an output. So you can say here not only 5, we are asking the user to enter his own number for which this program will give the factorial. So I'm saying x is equal to factorial n, because this is returning something, I'm catching it in x, and x is the result of the factorial. So I hope this program is clear to everyone in the class. Is it clear?
Clear, ma'am.
Now let us move on to another example wherein we'll be calculating the GCD of two numbers, which is nothing but highest common divisor or greatest common divisor. You can say it anything. So we are taking two numbers A and B. So then we are passing this A and B, and we want the greatest common divisor. So this is logic we are applying over here. Okay. So if B is equal to 0, then we are returning A. You can also doing, you're making a recursive call by changing the values of A and B. You're passing B into A, and then you're saying A mod B will be into B. So now again, it performs the, it checks for the if and else conditions. If B is equal to, if B is not equal to 0, then it comes to the else part, again calculates GCD by swapping the numbers or making B pass to A and A mod B to pass to B, and it continues in this manner till there is a base case encountered. What is the base case here? The base case here is if B is equal to 0 is the base case. When B is equal to 0 happens, then you're breaking it and you're returning whatever is there in A, you're returning it. GCD. Okay, so there are many mathematical solutions for GCD, but this is the recursive solution. So we are applying this. You can also solve it also, but since the recursive seeing is Fibonacci sequence, program two seeds. Okay, so you call them as seeds. Okay, so you say seed F1 or else you say F0 and F1. These two are the seeds from which the Fibonacci sequence evolve. So F0 will be equal to 0. So the Fibonacci series will start with these two seeds. You can also say S1 and S2 or whatever, like your variable is your wish here. Okay, so I have two seeds over here, 0 and 1. From these two seeds, what happened? I sum it up. So I say 0 plus 1 will become 1. And then the previous two numbers, 1 and 1 will sum up to 2, and 2 and 1 will sum up to 3. And 3 and 2 sum up to 5, and then 8. You can see very fast, like you'll be getting a very, very big number. Okay, summing up of the previous two numbers. So this is a iteration, right? You say that this keeps on happening till you stop it. What I have done here, you can also generate the Fibonacci sequence by using the loops also. But here we are doing it in recursion. Fine. Okay. So how we are doing it? So we are taking the number of terms, how many numbers you want on the screen. So I want, so here this is read by the user. So I'm saying enter a number 11. 11, what is 11? 11 is the number of terms. Okay. So I want 11 terms to be printed, Fibonacci terms to be printed. So I said 11, and then I'm giving a condition over here that number of terms given by the user should not be less than or equal to 0. Okay, right? At least one he should give, right? So enter a positive number. So this that you're not writing programs for yourself. You're writing programs for some set of end users to use your application. That will be your make it a point that your applications are giving instructions to the user whenever the user enters some wrong input or like that. Okay, fine. This is just that. And then in the else part, so I just have printed Fibonacci sequence. So it just have came in the output like this. And then,
Ma'am, in that binary recursion, will there be any other call, ma'am?
no, only two calls for the value of 0 in two calls. See here, initially on 0, first call will be is n. What is n over here? N is 0, right? Avuna kada? N terms, right? So first call is made, I is 0 first. Avuna? So we are making a call on 0. So what happens now? N is 0 over here. So what we are saying n is less than or equal to 1. So 0 is less than or equal to 1. You are returning 0. Okay, n return chestunnao. So n is 0. So what will happen? The first Fibonacci series is 0, 0 is written. For 0, no recursive call is made. So it takes the next term. What is the next term? Next term is 1. So now what is it? 1 less than or equal to 1. So it is true. So it will return n. What is n? 1, right? So the next term is printed as 1. Now what will happen? N will take the turn with 2. Okay, so now I is equal to 2. So 2 is passed. So now n is 2. Now what will happen? 2 is less than or equal to 1. So this condition failed for me. So it goes into the else part. So inside the else part, what you're doing, ma? Inside the else part, what you're doing, you're calling two recursive calls. Two recursive calls. One, what you're doing, 2 minus 1. So you're making a call to Fibo, this recur Fibo, on n minus 1, which is 1, right? 2 minus 1 is
1.
1. So it is calling 1. And then you're making another recursive call, which is recur Fibo. So what is that? 2
0.
minus 2, which is 0. Okay.
Yes,
Now
ma'am.
what is Fibo
Ma'am.
1? What is Fibo 1? Fibo 1 is less than or equal to 1, which is 1. So Fibo 1 will return 1 for me. What is Fibo 0? Fibo 0 will return 0 for me.
0.
So these two individual functions have returned two individual numbers. After getting these two individual numbers, it will make an addition between these two numbers, which is this is 1. So 1 is returned. So for Fibo 2, what is the answer? 1. So I got 1 over here. So next I will take the number 3. So now n is equal to 3. So what will happen? It will be calling for Fibo 2 and then it will be calling for Fibo 1. Okay, so for Fibo 1, I got 1. Okay, so internally it makes the calls for every time you call this function, internally it will make a call. Again, this Fibo 2 will make a call. Internal ga malli meeku ee Fibo 2 will make a call andi. So
Yes,
Fibo 2 will individually execute. So Fibo 2 will make two calls. Deniki Fibo 1 ki and Fibo 0 ki. మళ్ళీ ఈ రెండు ఆన్సర్స్ వస్తాయి అంటే ఫిబో 2 నీకు 1 రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంది. దిస్ ఫిబో 1 విల్ గివ్ 1 ప్లస్ దిస్ ఫిబో 0 విల్ గివ్ 0. సో 0 plus 1, this Fibo 2 will give 1 and Fibo 1 will give 1. So now it is 2. So this 2 is returned. So 2 is got here. Next I takes the value of 4 and this repeats like this. Okay, is it clear?
Clear, ma'am.
Yeah. How the Fibonacci generated using recursion. Infinite recursion. What is infinite recursion? It is like you don't have a base case and you're calling the function again and again, no end for this recursion, which is a very, very bad programming. You should have infinite recursion where I just made a call to the fun n. So what will happen? I'm not reducing the value of n or nothing. I just called this function on n is equal to 5 and inside this I just have one statement which is saying returning fun n. So this is called on 5 all the time. Okay, so it is called on this. Now what happens? This is generating me an error. So it is saying line 3 in fun return fun n. So there is an error over here. And please do observe this last line. Okay, so what is this last line? You can also understand the meaning of this dots or hyphens over here, meaning that many times the recursion has executed. Okay, and in the last line it is saying runtime error, wherein it is saying maximum recursion depth exceeded. Python interpreter limits the recursion limit so that infinite recursions are avoided. Else what will happen is if you are not having this limit on this particular recursions or iterations also, if you are just calling the for loop and there is no limit, indefinitely you're calling your for loop, then what happens, as long as the par is there, it keeps on executing. Okay, so the program, so there is no stopping unless and until you press Control C. You cannot get back to the normal programming environment. So you need to abruptly stop it. You need to say Control C, and then only you can come out of it. So that's the problem with recursion or infinite loops which execute indefinite times. In this, I mean, restricting the number of recursive calls that you make. And the sys module in Python. So this, keep in mind, I'll come back in the modules. Your next topic is modules. In the modules, I'll be starting with your sys module only. So sys module is a synonymical word for system. So the module box, you have this module. Okay, so a list of modules alphabetically ordered, and you can go into this sys module, and inside the sys module you can see many variables and functions. So among the functions, one of the function is set recursion limit. So the name of the method is self-explanatory. I needn't tell. The meaning is understood. So it is set recursion limit, and the maximum limit is, so a function can call itself to 1,000 times. After 1,000 times, it will throw you that error. I have shown you, right? So it is telling me that maximum recursion depth exceeded. So means that this function has executed. So this fun function that I have written has executed 1,000 times. Okay, it is stopping it. So this is the method. You can use this method to increase or reduce the default value. You can reduce the recursion limit, or you can also increase, but by default it is 10 raised to 3, 10 power 3. So you can take this parameter, set recursion limit, and pass how much ever you want to set it, you can do that. Okay, fine. Important concept of these functions is by object reference. Generally, would be differentiate between pass by value and pass by reference. By value, okay, so you're just making a copy and the modifications are made on the copy, and the original copy will stay as it is. That is called by value. Okay, so let me show you this with some example. So I just have made this one, okay, to make you better understand. Say that this is the original value. So the original value is something, you can say that a glass of yellow water or whatever. Okay, so then what I said, I have made I passed this value into a function. So I have shown it in terms of an arrow mark, and this is called by value. Say that it is called by value, and I changed the yellow color to blue color. Okay, so in the function, I made certain changes to this value, and now the value of this was initially it was yellow color, and now I made it to blue color. Okay, so what happens in call by value is, if somewhere around after this modification, then somewhere around in the main program, I'm trying to use this value. Okay, so still it will be yellow color only. This effect of changing the color, which I did in the function, will not have any effect in the main program. So this concept is called as call by value. In the same way, when you pass a variable into a function and make some modifications to the variable a in the function, the effect is not, for example, I have a is equal to 5. So initially I had a is equal to 5. So I'm showing you that over here. And inside the function, I made a is equal to 100. Inside the function, I made a is equal to 100. Now, after this modification and in the main program, if I want to use a again, so a's value will be still 5 only. This change do not have any effect on this particular variable. The reason is that when you are actually passing the value, it makes a copy of a inside the function in the method. Okay, so or else in the function. So it makes a copy of a, and the modifications are made on the copy. Okay, and those modifications are visible inside the function only. Outside the function, the modifications are not visible. In such kind of scenario, you call that as call by value. Now coming to what is meant by call by reference, chala important in a question in the interview's point of view lo. And because every programming language has got different ways of mechanisms. C programming have got a different mechanism, Java has got a different mechanism, and Python has got different mechanism. So it is not same. If scenario I'm doing over here, so I said a is equal to 5, and I made the modification to a to become 100 over here. And what will happen is after some time, after making this modification, and inside the program, if I try to use a, the value of a will be 100 only. Okay, so 100. So the changes are reflected over here. The reason is here you're making a copy, here you're passing the address by using the pointer. So that's how you make a call, right? In your C programming, if you just recall, if it is a swap function, you'll be saying the function call will be swap a comma b. If you simply pass the value, so a is the value and b is the value, so it is positional arguments, it just takes and makes a copy of the value. But here when you want to make a call by reference, remember your C programming, you'll be saying swap and a is nothing but the address of a. So you're passing the address, and there you'll be having some pointer star p or star q or whatever to catch this address, and then you'll be making modifications. So these two are the concepts which we already know, which is call by value and call by reference. I hope this is understood, right, to everyone. Is this concept clear, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now the question is, what do Python supports? Okay, so now that we know the concepts of call by value and call by reference, now the point is we need to understand what Python supports. This is the interview question. What is the mechanism Python uses for passing something into a function? What is the mechanism Python adopts? Is it call by value or call by reference? Now the answer is Python do not support call by value or call by reference. It supports call by assignment. Okay, so let me tell you what is call by assignment. So what is call by assignment? To understand this, let us see. Everything in Python is an object. So this I told you, there is a difference, right? Pure object-oriented programming and non-pure object-oriented programming. Even though Python and many other languages like Java, C++, all these are examples of object-oriented paradigms, or the languages that follow this object and class and this kind of concepts they follow. So it's an object-oriented programming languages, but in the object-oriented programming languages, we do have another category which says that whether a programming language is pure or not. Okay, mechanism Python adopts to pass something into a function. So it is pass by object reference or call by object reference or call by assignment. Okay, so you should not say call by value and call by reference. No, Python supports pass by object reference. But this internally is the concept of call by value and call by reference. So don't think that I have put that glasses and all that. It took some time to actually make the slide, right? I didn't waste that time simply. There is a meaning for why I put that slide and made you understand call by value and call by reference. So the reason is, say you have here the objects are of two categories in Python. One is like mutable objects and the second one is immutable objects. So what are the examples of mutable objects? List is an example, dictionary is an example. So these are all the examples of mutable objects, and set is an example of mutable object. And immutable objects are strings, tuples, then numbers, booleans. All these are examples of immutable objects. So based on the type of object you pass, the function will behave accordingly. That is meant by call by assignment. If you are passing an immutable object, it will behave like call by value. If you are passing mutable object, it will behave like call by reference. That is meant by call by assignment. Is it clear to everyone in the class? I'll show you the examples also, but as of now, just is the concept clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.